Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, as you may have guessed from the change in background, I'm back in Scotland and I haven't been able to film for a little while, as you might have seen on the Facebook, after my computer disagreed with a concrete floor. But since I'm back here and I didn't get to film a Swedish beer review for a while, I thought it would be kind of cool to do something that's a bit of a crossover between Sweden and Scotland. So for this one, we are going to return to Stigbergets Bryggeri from Göteborg in Sweden, Gothenburg as you'd say in English, and they've just released this beer, which is the Wee Heavy. So this one is described as an Olympic Scotch ale. It comes in at 10%. It was brewed on the Olympiad in 2016, the 29th of February, and they're saying that they're going to brew this beer every 4 years on that day, and it says on the bottle that you should age it for that period. So this one really should be drunk on the 29th of February 2016, but I was too excited when I learned that they'd actually brewed the Scotch ale style. I love trying Scotch ales from different countries and seeing how they're turned out, but Stigbergets, of course, a very highly rated brewery in Sweden at the moment, especially for things like Amazing Haze, GBG Beer Week, and of course you do have the Narangi from OO Brewing. Ole Anderson, of course, brews for both companies. OO Brewing is his own, but these guys are very highly rated. This is the first darker beer I'm trying from Stigbergets as well, although I should point out I've tried the Baltic Porter from OO Brewing, but definitely looking forward to this one, and I hope you guys enjoy the review. I'm really excited to try this. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews I've done from Stigbergets. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do subscribe to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city or state, or whatever you're interested in. Indeed, there's the playlists of beers from different countries. Do check out the whiskey and sake reviews, and as always, I thank you again for your support of the channel, and do let me know some other beers and breweries you guys would like to see me review. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Stigbergets Bryggeri then. So as I mentioned to you earlier, these guys are based in Gothenburg, and they were founded by Niels Huldkrantz and Richard Simonsson, and basically the pair of these guys own two bars that share one kitchen. This is Bar Kino and the Hagebjörns Cafe, which are located in Linnegatan in the city, and they both opened back in 2007. So originally the idea was to brew a few beers that they could actually sell in the bars, but this led to them kegging the beers and selling them to other pubs, and eventually also to bottling the beers, and this began in November of 2014. So originally their beers were mainly English and German styles, but as you might have seen more recently, they've been expanding into the hoppy American beer styles. Of course, they're really quite well known for these kind of Northeast American IPAs at the moment. But they started out with a 1,000 litre brew kit from Slovakia, and they upgraded recently to a 2,000 JTM system from Denmark in December of 2015. They do want to double this capacity whenever they can afford to, but they don't want to kind of borrow to do that in the meantime. But Niels and Richard are joined at the brewery by two brewers, one of whom of course is Ole Anderson from OO Brewing, a very talented brewer as I've seen quite recently, and there's another three people there as well who deal with logistics and packaging and various other tidbits around the brewery. As I mentioned to you, these guys have a very kind of close relationship with OO Brewing. Ole Anderson, of course, that is his company, and he brews for Stigbergets as well. So yeah, very highly rated brewery in Sweden at the moment. If you get the chance to try their beers, I highly recommend you do. My favourite one probably that I've tried is the Amazing Haze, but pretty much anything you're going to try from Stigbergets is going to be pretty good. So as I say, check out the brewery website in the description below. I think they've got about 25 different beers at the moment, 25 or 30 different beers available from Stigbergets, and there's about 7 or 8 I think from OO Brewing that you can check out. But two very good breweries. Ole Anderson, like I say, is a really kind of coveted brewer in Sweden at the moment, and you should try his beers if you get the chance. So yeah, that's enough about the brewery just now. Let's actually get on to the tasting of this beer. So let me just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open up. So as you can see, this is something that quite interested me about this one. I'm not sure if that's red pandas that's on the artwork there, but it's not a very kind of Scottish artwork theme, this one. It looks more like it's the Gobi Desert or something like that in the north of China or Mongolia, something like that. But a really cool piece of artwork that's on this one. You can see on the back there, tells you the Stigbergets Wee Heavy Olympic Scotch Ale at 10%. It tells you brewed the 29th of the 2nd 2016, and it should be left for an Olympiad. So as I say, I'll get another bottle of this one and save that for you next time. But I was really just excited to try this because I love trying Scotch ales from different parts of the world. It's a plain bottle cap on this one, and without further ado, we'll get this guy open and get on with the tasting then. So yeah, nice smoky opening on this beer as we open it up, and we'll get it out and into the glass. And I tell you something, as you open this beer up, you can smell the kind of red fruity esters coming out of this. See if we can get a nice head on this beer. You can see that's actually poured a kind of really nice, quite bright red colour there. It's really nice looking beer, this one. I do like that artwork on it as well. So as you can see, I've got the light just up here so you can see the colour really quite well in this. It's fair to say that this one, it's almost a kind of, it's not quite a cherry colour, but I'd say it's fair to describe this one as a sort of, probably, it's kind of copper towards the top, but it's a really quite bright, almost berry red at the bottom. If I put my fingers behind the glass, and if I put it around here as well, there is a degree of transparency to this beer, although it is quite hazy at the same time, but it looks absolutely lovely. There's one or two little sediment particles kind of floating around in it, but overall it looks really nice. There's a few big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, quite a lot of little ones just going up towards the bottom of the head there, but it's faded away to be a very kind of thin foamy layer on this one. But I would say the head, I think it's fair to say it's a really kind of creamy colour, this one. So let's just see if we can sugar that up a little bit and get a bit more colour out of it. But it looks absolutely lovely, this beer. As I say, the big note that's coming out of this one for me, it's red fruity esters, but there's almost a little bit of a kind of dried kind of peach or apricot or something coming out of this. It's kind of like sultanas rather than raisins, but you know, on the aroma you can really smell, as you would expect, the big roasted malt. So let's look at that more closely. Yeah, so as you would expect from this one, you've got a big kind of bready malt base. This is really the signature of the Scotch ale. I always find the ones in America that you get, the American Scotch ales, are wee heavies, and I should point out, wee heavy is a term that is coined by the Americans. I'd never heard of a wee heavy before until I'd tried some of these American Scotch ales. It's a term that's never really been used over here, I think, for Scotch ales. We always had the shilling system, the 50, 60, 70, 80 and 90 shillings. The ones that are used in America, the wee heavies, tend to be somewhere between the 80 and 90, of course. The shilling was just the tax that was put on the alcohol because of the content, of course, and it gradually went up. And it was basically, as the number of the shilling went up, the stronger the alcohol got. So this beer, of course, will be somewhere between an 80 and 90 shilling. But on the aroma with this one, as I was saying, you get this nice kind of brown bready aroma just underpinning the beer, and it's really quite dark and roasted as well. The key thing between the Scottish Scotch ales and the American Scotch ales, the key difference seems to be that the Scottish ones are a bit more bready and roasty, but the American ones really lean more towards the caramel. And on the aroma, this one, to me, it does smell a little bit closer to the Scottish ones, but there's a lot of toasted brown sugar in here. So on this one, as I say, there's a good bit of roasted caramel. You can smell some of the darker brown sugars as well. Maybe a kind of treacle or molasses, as they would say over in the States. But you can smell some of the lighter caramel notes. Maybe a little bit of kind of honey or something coming off. You can get that little lighter kind of honeycomb feel to this beer. But it does smell really quite nice. But when you're sitting far away from it, like I was saying, you get more of the red fruity ester. There's a lot of toasted grains I'm picking out in this one. It really does smell a bit closer to the Scottish version of the Scotch ale, but there's a lot of nice red fruity esters, you know, the figs, raisins, plums. This one leans more towards the kind of slightly sweeter ones, I would say, though, so maybe a bit more figgy. And kind of the candied red fruit ester, I always talk about the Haribo Star Mix Sweets. It kind of reminds me of that a little bit as well, but I think there's a bit of a sultana kind of thing, maybe a little bit of dried peach or something coming out of this beer too. So it smells really interesting. Take a bit of time and enjoy the aroma, because that's always going to be a nice characteristic when it comes to the Scotch ales. But let's get stuck into this one then. So this one is the wee heavy from Stigbergets Bryggeri up in Gothenburg in Sweden. Skål, slange, as we would say. Oh yeah, that is really quite nice actually. And you know, for 10%, this is something that is really, it really is quite drinkable, you know. At 10%, you wouldn't expect this beer to be kind of as light in the mouthfeel as it is. But that's nice. That's definitely a nice beer, this one. It's just got a nice it's interesting because it's got quite a nice mouthfeel to it. It has that kind of the Stigbergets, and when you try breweries as a beer reviewer, you do start to notice trends with the mouthfeel and things. It's interesting because it does have that kind of nice, quite light and wet mouthfeel, but it's got this huge depth of flavour. It starts off very light and then it just goes and becomes very dark and very kind of big roasty malts. It's just lovely, the transition this beer makes. Yeah, no, that's nice. At the moment, I'm sure after aging it will change a little bit, so that's why I say I'm looking forward to trying my next bottle of beer, this one that I get. So with this one, there's a nice kind of bready malt base to this one. Like I say, Scotch ales always tend to have this nice bready malt base, and you can feel this one, it just kind of blankets the middle of your palate. There's a bit of a kind of grainy character to it coming out as well. That's why I always say it's a kind of brown bread malt base you get from these beers. Yeah, the hoppy side of this beer is interesting too, you know. With the Scotch ales, you always get a bit of earthiness, and you can really pick that up in the back corners of your palate. As you come further forward on the side of your palate, it's very, very smooth, and that again is a bit of a trend. Maybe there's a little bit of grassiness around the front curve of the palate. I'd guess maybe they've used English hops in this beer, because we don't really get Scottish hops. It's more the malt that you get in this country. And I would be interested to know if they have used Scottish malt in this one. It does certainly taste like there might be a little bit of it in there. But with this one, as I say, the hops are very earthy in the back corner of the palate. As you come further forward, it just smooths out. Round the front curve of the tongue, I think it's a little bit more grassy. And behind that front curve of the palate, that's where you're getting some of these nice red fruity esters. But I think based on the taste, this one definitely leans more towards what the Scottish version of the Scotch ale is. It really has that big kind of grainy roasted character to it. As I said, the American Scotch ales tend to be a little bit more kind of sugary and leaning towards the big sort of caramel flavours, but this one I think Stigbergets have got spot on pretty much. It's got a little bit of that, but it mainly leans towards what this classic Scotch ale was, or is. But yeah, like I say, middle of the palate, nice bit of bready malt base in there. You can pick up the caramel characters of this one on the top, or just on top of that. So there's a nice kind of oily, sweet caramel thing in there on top. But that kind of gives way and it becomes really quite toasted and a little bit roasted actually in the middle of the palate too. As the flavour progresses, you start to get a little bit more of a toasted, grainy thing going on with this beer. And it comes off really nicely. The roasted character, like I say, really for me is what the note that the Scotch ale should have, and they've hit the nail on the head with this one. But it's got a good mix of kind of sweeter caramel and a little bit that darker roasted element to it as well. I think maybe there's a wee bit of a biscuity element coming out of this one as well in the aftertaste, but really as that flavour progresses in the aftertaste, you're getting this roasted character just sitting to the inside of your palate, and the earthy hops are just lingering there into the aftertaste as well. And as you just pay attention to the fruitiness as well, there's some interesting things going on there. Yeah, as I always say, just pay a bit of attention to that little oily bubble behind the front curve of your palate. That's where these red fruity esters are coming out in this one. So for me, it's coming out, there's a good bit of figgy character in there. It's not quite as sharp as plums, I would say. It's not quite as sharp as a flavour you're going to get from them. It's quite figgy. There's a little bit of raisiny character and sultana in there as well. It's not simply a red fruit ester that's coming out of this one. But as you progress into the aftertaste, it really starts to remind me of that red candied fruit ester that I always talk about, you know, the sort of Haribo, the little heart-shaped sweets in the Haribo Star Mix. And it comes out very nicely actually. I have to admit, I really do like that in this beer. So yeah, they've pretty much hit the nail on the head with this Scotch ale for me. I do like the fact that it has some of the American character with a little bit of the sweeter elements to it, but at the same time, it really does it leans far more towards the Scottish Scotch ale with these roasty kind of bread characters and the darker side of the caramel than it does to the sweeter side of the caramel. So for me, Stigbergets they've kind of hit this one, the nail on the head with this one, I would say. It's a really nice example of the style, so I'm definitely going to get another bottle of this one and age it for the 4 years and see how it turns out. But yeah, the Scotsman approves of your Scotch ale, Stigbergets, so I hope you guys like that. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I'd say it's actually very light for a Scotch ale. You know, when it's 10%, it is quite light, and I do wonder if that's what they were going for, because in Scotland, as I've said with the Scottish beers I've reviewed, we do have quite a kind of, you can taste the minerals in the water. You get that a little bit with this beer as well. There is a little bit of a minerally quality to it, but with this one, I'd say it's actually kind of mid-bodied, maybe pushing the full-bodied category, but that said, for the Scotch ale, it does feel quite light in mouthfeel, and that mainly, I think, is maybe due to the way that the water comes across in this one. It does have a little bit of a different feel to the water than the other ones do, the amazing haze and stuff like that. It does feel just a little bit different, but there's a good bit of alcohol warmth to this one. It's got quite an oily mouthfeel. At the same time, it's wet and it's also oily. There's a good bit of malty sweetness, but as I say, it leans towards the kind of roasted side of things. There's a bit of dryness from the hops, but not too much. The earthiness has a little bit of dryness, but mainly the hops are quite smooth, and there's a little bit of fruity juiciness from these kind of red candied fruit esters that are in there as well. But as I say, overall, it's a really nice beer. I'd say, to kind of sum up the mouthfeel, it's light for a Scotch ale, but it's got a bit of heaviness, and there's a good bit of boozy warmth to this as well. You can feel it down here. But overall, as I say, this is a really nice example of the Scotch ale from Stigbergets. If you're interested in what a Scotch ale kind of should be, rather than things like the American take on it, then this is probably a good example to go for. As I say, it's a limited edition beer. They're only going to brew this once every 4 years, so get one, either try it fresh or get another one and age it as well and see how it turns out. But they've done a really nice job with this one, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this beer again. So I will buy another one and review that for you in 4 years. But it's been really cool to try a Swedish take on my kind of native style of beer, the Scotch ale. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this review as well, and it's really cool to get back to filming again. So there's a lot of videos to come up. I hope you enjoy them, but as always, please let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Make sure you try some of the Stigbergets and OO beers, one of the really most coveted breweries over in Sweden at the moment, and quite rightly so in my opinion. If you like IPAs, try the Amazing Haze. If you like your darker beers, try either the Baltic Porter from OO Brewing or some of the other things that these guys do. A very good brewery. Just pick a style that you like, and I'm pretty sure you will enjoy it. But thank you again for watching my reviews. Until the next time, it's Slanja just now, the wee heavy from Stigbergets over in Gothenburg in Sweden. Slanja just now.